Hey everybody, this is Dr. Kevin McGovern, and we are live for another Velocity RX podcast. And I have a very special guest. I have cloned myself, and I have invented another physical therapist down in the great state of Georgia who has very similar views than I do. So you can stop hearing me preach from my pulpit and realize that what I'm telling parents and young pitchers is that this injury thing is an epidemic. There are solutions, and sometimes we're not finding the correct solution. So, without further ado, I want to introduce my colleague Clay Hammons, a physical therapist in the great state of Georgia, where it's probably hotter here in Massachusetts than it is down in Georgia today. But
Sounds like it.
Clay, thanks for coming on, and
Kevin,
let me
man,
my
thank you so
audience
much for having me.
tell my
Yeah,
audience a
man.
little bit about yourself. What do you do? What's your story?
Yeah, man. So, doctor of physical therapy, been a physical therapist now for 10 years. Graduated down at the University of St. Augustine. Certified manual physical therapist, do some dry needling. Um, Worked for 10 years in corporate PT world. That could be a whole nother podcast talking about why I don't like that. But so transitioning now over into cash based pay. Wanting to treat more athletes, specifically baseball players and pitchers, and help them not have the arm injuries that we're seeing going on now in our game that we love. Right. So that's my goal. Love what you teach. Love what you preach. We need more of it in our game, and we need more of it earlier on in our game as far as the age of the athlete. I think that's key. So yeah, I've started seeing more baseball pitchers, players over the last few years through some local contacts that would kind of refer, and they would see the good results that we would do with them. And that's kind of grown. So now I'm in this cash based space, and just wanting to grow that a little bit more. And like I said, love what you're doing, love the model. Gonna probably try to do something similar myself as I get it built out and going.
Fantastic. I love it. So you and I had a conversation just before we went on air. We were talking about some injuries that some players that you had dealt with, and we talked about a word that is used that I kind of cringe when I even said it to you. The word elite, right?
Hmm.
We've got elite 9U, elite 10U, elite 12U. So my opinion, if you if you haven't reached puberty, you're not elite at anything, number one.
That's right. That's right.
That's number one. And like you're elite, I think, when you're getting paid to perform on TV. Then you're elite. You're an elite athlete. But
Mhm.
even if we use that word and we kind of look at the model of Major League Baseball or college baseball, um, I think a lot of these, and this is a question that I didn't go over with you, I'm just going to drop it on you.
Very good.
These guys are, you know, on these travel teams, parents paying three, four, five, even in Massachusetts, $6,000.
Wow.
How do you know your kid has the physical tools? And I don't mean skills, I mean physical movements to perform on that baseball field without getting hurt? Who is testing them? Who is signing off? Like we all know the stupid high school physical, turn and cough. Can you touch your toes? That does nothing. We don't know how the shoulder moves. We don't know how the spine is aligned. Is there scoliosis? Is there something wrong with the foot? Every kid goes around walk like this with their shoulders connected to their ears. So, are we looking at 15 time bombs on the field just waiting for something to happen? Because there
Yeah.
is a screening process to make sure that, hey, little Johnny, yeah,
Right.
it's okay to
Yeah.
move.
Even just, I mean, yeah, even just as simple as doing a range of motion assessment on the elbow and shoulder, right? Like even breaking it down just to that. Yeah, you can get into, I mean, of course, we need spinal rotation, we need good hip rotation, pelvis rotation, we need good dorsiflexion at the ankle. And then we can get into stability, right? Stability and strength too. But yeah, who's doing that for these players? And the answer, quite frankly, is no one.
No one, right? And so we already are starting off because I always think that, injury is an equation. We got this, 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 and equals injury. So we're already starting off, I don't know, I'm not sure when you guys start, but most programs around here start, some start in November, some in December, and most by January 1st are
Right.
starting indoors. They're doing all this time, all these practices, and no one has checked to see if they are physically capable of doing all the tasks without being injured. I think that's where all this starts. Right. And then
Yeah.
of course we have the abuse and overuse, but like
We'll talk more about that for sure.
yeah, like so why so where would what should a parent do in that case, right? If they want to protect their child from being injured, what should they be doing before that kid sets on the field?
Yeah, to me, it's just having a good functional movement assessment or exam done. And to me, there's no better person to do that than a doctor of physical therapy. We need to see how well they're moving. Like we said, with just simple range of motion assessment, spine, shoulder, hips, knees, ankle, all of that. How's it moving? And then how's it moving functionally? How well can you squat?
Biggest
Um,
biggest movement on the planet that no one does correctly. Right.
how good is your balance?
Right.
Those are simple things that you can find in an assessment that can greatly reduce your risk of getting injured, and help you perform more optimally. That can easily be done on one exam. Hey, here's this we can work on. Right, here's some exercises you can do. That's fine if that's all you want. If you want more, here's a program we can get into with little Johnny and help him hopefully one day become elite and not be injured.
So, some of the things that I run into, and I'm sure you do too, is that people think in the medical model, the physical therapist is almost at the end, right? We've got
Mm,
the primary care physician or the pediatrician. We have the orthopedic. We of course have the MRI machine, right? Because that gets people better. I don't know if you knew that we
got
put
gotta
one.
have that one. Gotta
Gotta
have
have
one.
that one. And then
Yeah.
finally, by the time they get to you or us, I look at this like it's not very often that I look at someone and said, this is 1000% preventable.
Right.
Five medical professionals before you got to me. Had you been tested, had you been on a corrective exercise program, had someone look before you get on that field, because I mean, you have to pass a physical before you play for the Red Sox or the Yankees, you would not be in this situation. What do you think about that?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that is 100% preventable. Now, I don't I don't think that all injuries are preventable.
Oh,
I
of
will
course not.
say that. I think if the biomechanics are right for an injury, even though, you have elite level athletes get injured all the time, and if the biomechanics are right for an injury, sometimes that's going to happen. But I will say that will significantly decrease your likelihood of injury, significantly.
Agreed. So moving on now, we, both teach at the youth level. Social media to me has been a killer for arms. I think if someone did a study that the advent of TikTok and Instagram have probably increased the likelihood of arm injuries because kids are I mean, just before I came on air, I looked at my feed and there was the treads, the drive lines of, you know, grown adults, right? Or at least kids in college that have decently formed bodies trying to throw the ball as absolutely as hard as they can.
Right.
Whereas 35 years ago when I was growing up, I was emulating my pitching heroes in my backyard playing wiffle ball, right? Or with a tennis ball, something completely different. Not running as fast as I can and throwing a weighted ball against the wall, falling over into a somersault and sticking the landing. But this is what these kids see, right?
Right.
And you look at numbers. I mean, no one is going to win 300 games again, right? No one's even close now. No one's going to do it again. And the reason for that has been this quest for velocity, not outs, right? Because just if you flip over any baseball card from a player 25, I mean, you flip over Jim Palmer's baseball card, and he has better numbers than some teams as far as complete games, innings pitched, right? And that will just never happen again, right? You'll never see it. Greg Maddux, never balls moving in, out, up, down. It's how hard we can throw it. So I'm not sure where the whole velocity came through because if you can't hit a fastball, you can't play, right? You just
Right.
you can't play. But
Yeah.
so let's bring me, you sent me some numbers of this 9U tournament that you played in over the weekend, where
Right.
one of the pitchers had thrown 163 pitches in 2 days.
Right.
That's actually physical abuse. Now, when I posted that, many of the responses were, "Oh my God," but I'd say 30 of the responses were, "Well, what were the guidelines? How about your brain? How about your
Yeah.
brain? You're not, if you need a guideline to tell you that 163 pitches for a 9-year-old, you have to check if that's okay. You have no business coaching at all. You need to be, we need a Corey form that also has, are you an idiot coach, right? Not just if you're a pedophile. Are you or convicted
Right.
felon? Are you an idiot coach? Then you can't coach anymore. What
Right.
say you?
Yeah. I mean, that's just
You
crazy.
you witnessed it, so maybe you
I
can
mean,
tell what you witnessed.
I witnessed it. Yeah, and it it was one thing to see these kids up there, and I mean, they're just gassed. You know, I mean, it was everything they could do. Just you could tell, just labor. And the coach was like, "Yeah, we're out of pitching." And then I was thinking, I was like, they only pitched. At this point, they had only pitched three pitchers for the whole tournament. I'm like, how are you out of pitchers with? I mean, with three pitchers? Like, why aren't you developing more pitchers to take the stress off of these kids and teach it to more kids than just saying, well, I've only got three good pitchers and that's all we're going to use, right? So then they bring this other kid in for the fourth pitcher. He ends up throwing 80 in a day, which is still a lot.
A lot.
And some people may disagree with that or not. And, you get this, I think you still get this kind of old thing like, oh man, he's got a rubber arm. He can throw. He's got a rubber arm until it snaps. And then it's going to be an injured arm. But yeah, that was astonishing. That was, I've been doing the travel ball thing now for I mean just over a year. My kids are 9 and 8, and they do it. But to give you a perspective on it, we played that tournament. We were the number one seed going into Sunday. We pitched five pitchers in the tournament, and no one threw over 62 pitches.
Which means they're effective, right?
They're effective, right? Because we're teaching mechanics the right way. So you're going to throw more strikes. You're going to get more outs. Yeah. So what if they hit it? It's coming across the plate. That's what we
Right.
want. We want
Right.
our defense to do work for us. We're
Right.
not looking for the max velocity strikeout at 9 years old. I mean, it's great if it happens, but you just want to be effective, right? So if you teach it the right way, you won't have to put as much stress on your pitchers because they'll be throwing more strikes. You'll be getting more outs. I mean, 162 or 163 or whatever it was that's just insane.
That's literally criminal, right?
Yeah, and then and then I was thinking about it today. I was like walking my dogs earlier, and it was like still in the back of my mind, and I'm like, what did they do the next day for that kid?
I can tell you nothing.
Probably nothing, right?
Nothing.
They
But
went
not only that, what they do immediately after, right?
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, which goes back to our first question about having, some medical professional involved in these travel ball programs.
Right.
So one of the things that I don't want to say I hate, but is certainly outdated is this. Everyone goes back to this pitch smart, right? Pitch this data, this pitch smart, which, you know, it was a good start. We have numbers, we have guidelines, but I look at it in like your case, someone can throw 60 pitches with good mechanics, or someone can throw 30 pitches with horrible mechanics. Well, you only throw 30 pitches, right? But those 30 have three times, four times, five times the strain on the arm and elbow because they're done with poor mechanics as opposed to the kid throwing 60.
Right.
So I'm really trying to push for an upgrade of that where we're looking at mechanics, we're looking between innings at range of motion, at strength, right? Because like you said, kids labor him. I guarantee the kid who was throwing 163 could not hold his arm up against any kind of resistance, right? It would have failed any kind of muscle test, range of motion test, functional movement test, whatever screen you want to use. And he went back out there for another inning, two innings, three innings. And anything beyond that is literally damaging his arm. And if it's done at the 9U level, I guarantee it's done at the 16, 17U level with
Oh yeah.
much faster moving joints.
Yep. For
So
sure.
what do you think about like what needs to get done to because the tournament you played was about innings and not pitches. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't
So
make any sense either.
yeah. So and that's when so we got done with Sunday. Then I was kind of furious with it. So I looked it up. I was like, I don't even know, the guidelines. So I went and looked. I was like, sure, they got a pitch count. No, it's all based on innings. And so for the 9U, you can't throw more than 6 innings in a day or 8 innings for the entire tournament.
So that kid threw 160 some pitches in 8 innings.
Yeah, yeah. But they're also counting an inning as, and this is weird. Like if you say I got a pitcher that comes in and closes out the game and they pitched a one batter, that counts as a full inning for him, even though he only threw 5 pitches.
Gotcha.
And the same inning for a kid that threw 50 in a tough inning to get out of an inning, that that's equivalent.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like
It
that,
doesn't.
how's that quantitative?
Right. There
Right?
needs to be more evaluation, right? These
Yeah.
coaches can easily be trained in simple range of like, a kid does flexion, he does this, he's got to come out of the game, right? He can't,
Right.
he's got like they could be easily trained as part of a coaching certification program to understand range of motion, some simple strength test that if the kid fails, we don't need you to diagnose them, but we need you to triage them. That yeah, this kid just he doesn't have the strength to go and throw rather than send him out there for another 45 pitches. What do you think?
Right. No, yeah. I think that's good. I don't know how we would. I mean, I don't know how you implement that. Like you said, is there a standardized program that all coaches have to maybe go through to notice those things? Is there someone that needs to be appointed to the team or to the organization maybe that is there on site to pick up on that? I think that may be one of the more efficient ways you can do it. Say you have, take for instance, this was tournaments that we just played in, was RBI, and
Mhm.
so maybe RBI has a representative there that's walking
Yep.
around and looking at these games going on and looking at the functional movements of what these kids are doing during the game and going, hey man, this kid's laboring. Like, where's he at with his pitch count? Let me see the
Yeah.
game change. So maybe that's one way to do it.
Because these tournament hosts are making a lot of money. They can afford $500 to
And
put someone on site.
they are, and that's what I was talking to a friend of mine about too. And we were discussing it yesterday through text, and he was also appalled at the pitch counts. And so we were discussing, well, how do you police this? They're doing on an innings base and not a pitch count base. And I said it's pretty easy now with the transparency of Game Changer. Everybody's on Game Changer. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody's doing it.
Right.
But then he put up the point. He was like, yeah, but they don't want to spend the money to hire someone that's going to police that. And I think it's just pitch count alone is easily policed by the opposing coach. You know,
Yeah. Or, I mean, some of these, football, you got to have EMTs those cost money, right? So yeah, you got to pony up some money if you're if you want to keep kids safe.
Safe
Or maybe
safety.
there's a parent, or maybe there's something. But if we do nothing, nothing is sure to happen, right?
Right.
And that's what's happening now. I mean, when I'm seeing an 11-year-old kid in my office with a growth plate fracture, I like, oh my God, like that's never in my, I've been doing this 30 years. That's only been in the last 5 to 10 years that I've seen those type of injuries. That just never happened. And it's just quest for throwing it as hard as you can. Doesn't matter where it goes. Obviously, when you throw 163 pitches in 8 innings, you are not effective. And just, throw it as hard as we can. Chuck it like it's a rock
Right. With poor mechanics.
with poor mechanics. And that brings me to my other thing too about, and we can touch on this, and this will probably be a whole nother show, but I think there needs to be an avatar of mechanics, right? Like golf has Iron Byron. So for those who don't know, any golf club testing is done with the swing pattern of Byron Nelson on a mechanical apparatus, but the same swing path, all that kind of thing. So everything is the same. So all these studies out there that oh, we did a study on this, we did a study on that. All those studies are hugely flawed because every person in that study has different mechanics. So I might throw one way, Clay might throw another. He may have more stress on his elbow. May have more stress on my shoulder because of my mechanics. So any study that's done on joint stress with pitching needs to be looked at with rose-colored glasses because that's all it is. Because if every person in that study moves a different way, and if you're measuring
Everybody.
movement and the
Yes,
movement's not
everybody's going to be a
constant,
little different. It's just how do you, and it needs to be individualized. Like, okay, this, like you said, you may throw different than me. Johnny may throw different than Adam. But how do you make their mechanics more efficient for them individually?
yeah, I mean,
And
that's the key. But everyone needs to, you will see. I mean, I'm still arguing that the inverted W that killed Mark Pryor and has literally disabled Steven Strasburg, that he has very little use of his right arm. People will still argue that that is a good position for the shoulder to be in this ridiculous position. So until you understand that, that is a no-go. This is gonna continue for a very, 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 very long time.
right. And so let me ask you this, and this is a question that's kind of been weighing on me and kind of in the back of my mind is you said earlier, this is an arm injury epidemic that's going on and occurring, and it's not even really hidden anymore. Like it's very obvious. So what is the main reason why you think that is happening today, and
I think,
not in 1990,
sure.
80?
I think a lot has to do with training. Okay. Mechanics too, but training. So there is a website, and I will have to get it. I did a previous podcast. There were more pitching injuries, okay, in 2021 and 22 than there were total injuries in the National Football League. And it wasn't even close. It was almost double. Okay.
Wow.
Almost double, right? So these guys are bigger, stronger. Their traps are starting at their ears and they're throwing off these mechanics that might have been okay for someone like Tommy John, who was 165 pounds soaking wet with a hand sandwich in his pocket. That is not okay for Steven Strasburg at 6'5", 260. Right? Those are two different moving entities, right?
Right.
So we're into how, again, the training, how much we could lift, right? It goes back. I mean, I guarantee 99% of the pitchers in Major League Baseball will fail any sort of measurement of the scapulohumeral rhythm. Guaranteed.
Mm.
Guaranteed they're going to shrug first. So right then and there, he can't play until that's reversed. So for those
Until
who
he,
don't know, scapulohumeral rhythm is a kinesiological law that depending on what book you look at, for every 3 degrees I move my shoulders in elevation, my shoulder blade has to depress and turn 3 to 2. If that is messed up, everything from that piece forward is going to be injury prone. Whether we're doing bicep curls, we're doing throws, we're doing rows, it doesn't matter. And I just think the basics of movement are thrown out in training,
Right.
just thrown out, and that's the start of it, in my opinion.
And so you're saying, yeah, so that's it from a mechanical perspective, right? And then, to me, I was thinking about it and I was like, I'm 40. I just turned 40. And so growing up playing baseball, like I didn't have the travel ball wasn't big then, right?
Mhm.
And so, but my younger brother, who was 10 years younger than me, who's now 30, right? That's when the travel ball boom hit, right? And that's when you started seeing the early specialization come on, right?
Mhm.
For me, it was like, well, you had basketball season, you had football season, you had baseball season. You went and played each one,
Mhm.
right? And you had a good break, and your body was doing different movements all the time. And now it's like, hey, we're specializing Johnny at 8, and he's only going to play baseball, and he's only going to play baseball, but he's going to play it through the fall, and we're going to train through the winter, and then he's going to play it in the spring and all the way through the summer. And we're just going to let whatever coach comes along the way and take him, and we're just going to ride that, and we're not going to go get any, we're not going to have a specialist look at him. We're just going to do that, and then by the time Johnny is in high school, he's got a labral tear, or he's got a ulnar nerve subluxation, or he's got a whatever you may have, right? And so that's why that's a big part of it now, is why you're seeing all this is because now all these players that are now in the major leagues were, to me, the first generation of this big travel ball boom and early specialization boom, um, and never really had somebody look at them early on from a mechanical perspective and say, this is what you need to be doing in order to greatly reduce your risk of injury. And to me, that's why we're seeing it now, and that's why we didn't see it as much back then, is because those guys didn't grow up playing baseball year round with poor mechanics from the time they were 8 years old.
Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. So I think we're going to stop this episode here. This has been fantastic stuff. I will definitely have Clay on again very, very soon. But thanks for listening, and check us out on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe this podcast. Thanks for listening,
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Bye.